Hello everyone, my name is John Bussard. I'm an HPE Business Transformation Center engineer for Ingram Micro. I help support HPE servers, blade system storage, as well as Aruba networking technology solutions. In my videos, what I like to do is show you a slide from a popular PowerPoint, and then demonstrate to you what that means for the management context. Although we're going to do something a little bit different today, we're actually going to unbox a DL360 Gen11 server. So this is the premier 1U platform from HP. And this generation is certainly built off the latest generation of Intel 4th generation scalable processors. And these processors could have up to 60 cores as of this date. And with 2 processors, that would give you 120 cores within an environment. So you get some serious virtual machine density with one of these systems, or containerization within your environment using this platform. Right? And that's one way they're introducing new performance within this environment. The other way is with PCI Express Gen 5 slots, and there's 80 of those lanes within this system. They can be routed out to various components or OCP slots or things like that. Now, if you think about that, Generation 5 gives us 4 gigabytes per second of bandwidth per lane in an environment, so a lot of throughput, and we need that when we start looking at new networking card options that are coming out. We've got 1025, we're kind of here today, but 100 gig options are starting to peak out, so we certainly want to have those extra lanes to be able to support that bandwidth, or even NVMe. So while we're talking about storage, let's talk about the overall storage capacity in this system. So this system that we're going to see today has 8 small form factor drives, but you could certainly do up to 10 if you wanted to. Or if you needed capacity, you could certainly do 4 large form factor hard drives. There is a new backplane that you could have installed inside this system, and it's an ED-SFF backplane. And they come in a 1T form factor as well as a 2T form factor as far as the drives are concerned. Now, these drives are NVMe only, right? But it allows for greater density. I don't know if you've noticed, but if you look at flash drives and compare them to spinning disk drives, they're a lot smaller, so we might as well use that space in the environment. That's really what ED-SFF does. It really thins out the drives so you have the ability to put more inside an environment. You can mix 1T as well as 2T drives in a system if you needed to, but that's another way we're increasing bandwidth, so a lot more performance or scalability as far as storage is concerned in the environment. This system can do up to 8 terabytes, and this time around they're using DDR5 memory with up to 4,800 megatransfers per second. All right, so some people bring out the latency, but overall we're getting more performance as that is concerned within an environment. So the platform built off Intel's 4th generation of scale-up processors is certainly high performance, allows us to be able to get greater scalability within our environment. So instead of, like a VMware cluster maybe has 6 servers, maybe we consider cutting those servers down to maybe 3 or 4 servers within an environment, allowing us to save a little bit of OpEx expenditure as far as maintaining those systems within an environment. So with all that being said, let's do an unboxing of this system. All right, here's the box for our DL360 Gen11 server. As you can see, I did split the box open. I have looked inside, but I've put everything back together, and this should be the experience if you go to unbox this system. What I will tell you is that this system is a CTO build and not a BTO build, so everything was configured at the factory. And one of the main ways that I can tell that is by this bag. Not only does it have things like power cables, and if I flip it over, it has my ILO license in here, but it also has some miscellaneous cables that are put in here, as well as my SFP28. This system has Broadcom adapters that do 10 and 25 gig out of them. That's becoming pretty common. But I can tell this is because of all these cables. They usually put them in after the build in case you need these extra cables for some other type of configuration. And they give you a listing of the part numbers that are in this bag over here. Now, some other things that we have in here is this. This will be the front bezel. HPE has a new look for the front bezels, and I'll put that on at the end of this video. There's also the rails. These are the rack mount rails. They're pretty standard if you've worked with HPE servers before. So these are the sides that clip on to the server itself. Then these kind of go into the rack and they'll clip into the rack in the front and the back. And there's two of these for the left and right side. And then your server should slide in. Not any problem. Like I said, if you've done HP servers before, it should be a pretty familiar process. Nothing that's too crazy. All right, top, a piece of cardboard. We've got some foam over here. There as well. And then over here, this piece of cardboard that protects the front of the server. And then in this bag, there's another piece of foam that protects the back of this server. So one thing that's a little bit different with this generation, they used to take the bag of parts and kind of put them in on the side, but they're putting them in on the top right now. So it's not too different, but it's something that they've started doing. So let me take this out and we'll explore this further. All right, so here's the top of our DL360 Gen11 server. We open it up by just pulling back this right here. And I always like to stop here at the bottom of the top cover. It gives us some useful information. Now the DL360 Gen11 server is a one-use server. The DL380 Gen11 server is a two-use server. But they both use the same motherboard, so I think that's kind of interesting. You just get a little bit more space with the DL380. We can also see some common configurations of drives over here with small form factor, or even the new ED-SFF drives. So those drives are about half the size of our current drives, so you can get double the amount of drives in there. So I don't know if you notice, a lot of SSD drives are pretty thin. So now they're taking advantage of some of that compactness and putting that into a new form factor. So that's kind of nice. All right, this system has two 4th generation Intel Scalable processors. These are Platinum processors. They are 8460Y plus, and they have 40 cores per processor. Right, or total between these two processors, you have 160 threads. Right. I would say that these are kind of mid-range for the Platinum-based processors. If we look at the top of the pile, as far as the Gen 10 pluses, you're maybe looking at 32 cores or 36 cores. So we're getting a better value with these processors in the environment. They are given a little bit more heat, so HPE has moved to a liquid cooling scheme. There's a variety of cooling schemes that they have out there. So these are liquid cooled. It's a closed loop liquid cool system. So this is the radiator. You'll see it come out over here, go through this processor, and then over here, and then out. Right, and it's cooled by these fans here. These fans I think are pretty interesting. Anything with a purple label on it is hot pluggable, so I could pull this out while the system is on. But these fans are a lot smaller than last generation. So I think that's very interesting, reducing the size of these fans. Over here is our DDR5 memory. Let me see if I can get one of these out of here. Take a look at that. I think it's also important to note, obviously cooling is very important. Everywhere there isn't a stick of RAM, they have a filler panel now. Again, to maintain airflow within this environment. Over here is the cache battery for the RAID controllers. So you can pop that guy out here. Take a look at that. Back in over here. All right, it runs over here and all the way over to here. Right, and since we're talking about RAID controllers, right, it provides battery backup for the RAID controller that's in this slot. So let me take this out. All right, now I have removed a screw from up here, just so you know. But what I'm pulling out here is an MR416 RAID controller. but you want to look at that. And again, this is the battery hookup to this riser, which again goes over to here. So you can take a quick look at that RAID controller. Now this riser has a low profile slot as well as a full profile slot. So this slot over here, right, is 16x, but it does 1, 4, and 8x. And the same thing is true with this slot as well. Not a lot of things need that 16x. Now there are different options, obviously, for risers if you so need them. We have another riser over here. Pop that out. So this is another low profile riser. Again, it's 16x keyed, but it goes 1, 4, as well as 8x. Now these are our PCI Express cables to wire up to our OCP slots here. All right, so we can take a look at this here. I'll expand that on out. All right, so it's an OCP 3.0 card. This happens to be a Broadcom 57414 card. Gives us two 10/25 gig Ethernet ports on them. So these are SFP25 ports. Put that back in. Right. And over here we have a couple USB ports. I think that's a pretty good tour of the inside of our DL360 Gen11 server. Let's turn this around and look at the back. Alright, here's the back of our ProLiant DL360 Gen11 server. So just to give us a little frame of reference here, this was our full height slot over here, and this held the MegaRAID 416 card in it, and the riser was right about here. Right. And on the other half of the riser was another low profile slot, which is right here, and then our secondary riser held this slot over here. On the bottom we had one of our OCP slots, so this wasn't filled with anything, but our secondary one had the Broadcom 57414, and this had two ports of 10 gig or 25 gig connections in there, and then you put these SFPs in there if you wanted to. And those would just plug in here. Also on the back, we've got a couple USB ports, the ever popular ILO port, highly recommended, and then we have a VGA port over here. And finally, our two power supplies. Obviously, with the server of this class, you want some redundancy. And if we take that out, you can see that these are 1000-watt power supplies. All right, that's a quick tour of the back of this system. Let's take a look at the front. All right, here's the front of our DL360 Gen11 server. Over here we have a couple USB ports. One is to dump the IO logs. The other one is a USB 2.0 port. We do have a USB 3.2 port over here, as well as the display port over here. And if we wanted to, there is an option for an optical drive if you're still using that. I pretty much use the ILO virtual media these days. This system is configured with 8 small form factor drives. Other common configurations would be 4 large form factor going across the top, or even now we have the EDSFF drives, and those are much thinner drives. You can put in your environment, and you can get up to 20 of those in the front of this system. So think about the density we can get inside a DL360 Gen11 server. So there's a lot a lot of flexibility now within these 1U boxes. Now the system I have in here does have 3 800 gig NVMe drives. I suppose a quick glance, you'd never realize that these were NVMe, but let me explain a little difference. It's in the connector down here. Now, I have over here a SAS drive. So the SAS drive has these 2 connectors plus a little piece of plastic in the middle. If that plastic was missing, I would consider this a SATA drive. All right. But now, if we look at the NVMe drive, right, it's the same connectors on either side, but that little plastic piece in the middle has more connectors in it, actually. So that's what tells me this is an NVMe drive, and as long as you have the backplane and RAID controller to support it, you can use those drives. All right, and then to complete the look, the new front panel bezel. All right, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and please stay tuned for more videos.